posted a video on the Wecreat group the other day of a tumbler I done and had a lot of questions about it because I use LightBurn. The Wecreat software is good for basic stuff and the thing works fantastic, but when you need to get into changing settings a little bit more, I had issues with the way it auto goes in and does the autofocus on the tumblers. I use LightBurn with all my other lasers, and I decided to go ahead and start using LightBurn with the Wecreat. Now, it also has some issues, and Wecreat has their firmware locked where you can't get in there and recalibrate the settings. So I have a few workarounds that I have done, and I'm going to show you how I am making these cups. By no means am I an expert. By no means is this the only way to do it. You know, it's a combination of speed and power. I run 100% power, that way I can get my max speed. With that, it tends to give you more errors, but overall, once you do it a few times, then you'll get the intuition to where you need to make the changes for certain patterns or certain colors. But let's just get into it now and I'll show you what I do. I'm going to bend my tabs down, and then one thing that I really liked about the Wecreat Laser is that the laser goes and bolts into the same spot every time, and that's the way it's repeatable. Now this here, they should have a place for that to slide in, but I guess because the tray is movable, they didn't. I am going to cut me a insert, and that way that the center of those two rollers will always be the center of here. I just have not got that done yet. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this with my tabs straight up. First thing I did was I just went to Etsy and I picked out a file here. Now this guy's got 5-star ratings, which would tell me that this should be a great file. It's 2,300 downloads. However, whenever I downloaded the file, you see everything's nice and dark except for these little doctor signs right here. These are real thin lines, and I have had 2 cups that got ruined because these lines are so fine that they just do not cut through the material so good. So what I've done here was I just, in LightBurn, you can go ahead and if you select line, you can see the individual lines that make this up. And what I did was just deleted the outside line. And so that now just turns the whole thing to a fill. And that's one of the things that I love about LightBurn is that, you know, you can add and erase things very quick and simple. So I've made that little edit to both of these, and that's just to make them print a little bit easier. And once you get a file, you can figure that out. I always like to group. This is the button for group up here, and then this is the ungroup. So if I did want to make a single edit on a thing, I would ungroup it, but I will go ahead and group everything together. That way I don't lose any proportions. So this is 318 by 338. First thing I'm going to do is I am going to rotate this by -90 degrees. All right, so that puts us in our proper orientation. And you know, now this is our workspace over here, and I am working over on the side so that the grids don't get in my way and that you can see what I'm doing. So now what I need to do is make this to be the proper size. I have found that because the steps I can't adjust with the software, that I need to make this 186.5 if, say, this circle was cut in half and the other half was on this side and I wanted them to touch and to make the picture whole. 186.5 does that. However, I want to leave just a little bit of a gap so that it looks like the little gap between the rest of these. And now, if I was to come over here and draw a square, and I was to make this square, we'll lock the things and say if it was 30 by 30. And I like that. 30. So that would be a perfect square. And now if I was to burn that, the way the E-steps are set up, this would come out to be 30 by 50. So you have to reduce it by 60% in order to get the 30 by 30 square. So that means that you have to kind of skew this image by 60% in order to have it come out proportionately correct. And see, like if I put a line around the outside, that, you know, kind of highlights the way things are in LightBurn. So what we're going to do here is come back over here and select this. I've got my proportions undone. So this is 238 long. I find that if I wanted about a 2 millimeter gap, you know, leaving the painted section on the top and about a 2 millimeter on the bottom, that I need my image to be about 230 millimeters wide. Now the height, which is the rotational, which, you know, 318 should be about correct. It's, when I measure these, they're about 100, which would be 314. But since we know that we're off by about 60, I am now going to have my image set up with my proportions the way I want them here, and so it looks good. And then I'm going to change this to 184, and now everything looks kind of squished, but once it prints on the cup, it's going to be stretched back out, so it will look fantastic. Now then, we have our image ready to go on our cup. We need to go ahead and set our cup up into the machine. If you're not familiar with LightBurn, this window button, these are all our different, what I call palettes, these little breakout things over here. So like if I hit the arrange, you know, it will then be over in one of these palettes somewheres. You know, there's so many different, you know, okay, so now I got my art library here, see, and it will put it in, they kind of stack some of these up and then they kind of disappear. So the windows can be a little bit difficult to figure out, but once you get your windows kind of set the way you want them, these are the windows that I use. So we've got our camera control. Now the Wecreat camera does not work because it is not a pass-through camera. So I have a additional camera that I've added into here. So let's go ahead and we'll update our overlay. So now we have our cup here and we can see what's going on inside the machine. We come over here to our console. Now, if you want to rotate this by hand because it's locked, this actually is says something. This is the Wecreat file, or you can set up your own micros. And I changed the name to disengage steppers because it had this kind of weird name on it, but it's an M17 command is what it's running when you click on it. So by disengaging the steppers, then you can rotate your rotary by hand because it's normally engaged once you've used it. So now I've got this Tumbler autofocus. Now the Tumbler autofocus micro is a M130 command, and it is at the X93 and Y150. All right, so let's go ahead just to make sure. We'll home the machine so we know the machine is homed. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to click here on the Tumbler autofocus, and it's going to focus with the little dot to the side of the laser, not where the actual laser is. And so even though we have it set to focus at 93 and 150, which I wish that there was a way that I could just do the M130 at its current location, but I haven't yet figured that one out. So now I need to move the laser back over to get it centered up. And I find at 93 and at 137 is the kind of center of the cup, so I'm going to hit go on that. Now we are focused and we are ready to actually, burn. This is the location the laser is at. But what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and make sure my distance is set to 1 millimeter. And I'm going to drop this down about 2 millimeters. 1, 2. Okay, and what that just does is that's going to make me a little bit closer to the cup than the normal 7 millimeters that the focus distance is. But then when I get to the end of the cup over here, I won't be quite as far away. So I'm kind of under focusing here, and then it's going to be over focused later, but we're just kind of compensating. But before I run this, I want to make sure that I do not hit my tabs. So I'll change my distance here to 150, and I'll hit for it to move. And then now that I have the machine set and ready to go, I need to finish getting this file ready to go. Now this is our cuts and layers. We have our image sized and it is ready to go. We are set to fill. Now, one of the things that I like about the software is I can do bi-directional fill, which means that this is going to burn going both directions. Whereas the Wecreat, the older firmware, apparently it would do it, but now it only goes in the one direction. They took that out. And then I have it fill all shapes at once, and that means that it's going to start at the one side, go all the way up, and then move over and do it all at one time. You can do groups, so like if you had all these grouped individually, or you could have the shapes be going individually, but it is much faster to do all at once, and that way you don't have the cup spinning around as much and less chance that it gets off. Now the speed here, I am doing the white. I found that the black I did at 200 millimeters a second, and it came out great. I did some of these at 175, and I still had a little bit of issues, so I'm going to drop this back to 150. I'm running at max power. I do have my air assist turned on. That is something else that in LightBurn, each layer you can either have the air on or off, and so when I'm engraving in wood, I turn my air off and I don't get the soot around it, but then when I'm cutting, I will turn it on. And this puts out a lot of nasty stuff, and it will clog up the end of the nozzle if you don't have the air assist on. Constant power mode, I think that may help, but I like to only change one variable at a time. Now lines per inch, I'm not for sure if that's what the Wecreat when people are doing like 100, 120 or whatever, but I don't know where I read somewhere somebody had put that they had did 0.048, and I put that in, and that puts my lines a lot closer together, and it worked out good, and so I've been kind of sticking with that, and makes the burn just a little bit longer. But I can hit my preview here. Okay, I have 0. So that's a good thing to do, is hit that preview button and you can see what's going on. And as right here, it's got absolute coordinates, which is what I do not want. I want to do current position, because we have already set our laser up exactly at 93, which is about 2 millimeters from the edge of that paint right there. Now I could move this image over on it, but by hitting from current position, now you have these over here, and as you see when I click on these, you have this green dot that moves around. That green dot is your job origin. That means that's going to be where the laser is currently sitting at when you say run from current position. So if I put this right here, that means that I'm telling it that the laser is sitting right here and corresponding to the image, which is why I've got my tabs here. I want my seam, in case it does not come out perfect, to be right there with the handle. So since I have my laser head sitting right here, I'm putting the dot right there. If I was wanting to center this and I had a mark on the front of the cup, say like if I was just putting a logo there, then I would move this to the center, or what I use a lot of times if I'm doing cutting boards and stuff is I will put a mark right dead in the middle of the image of where I want it at, and then I will put my job origin in the middle so I line up the laser with the actual center of the project, and that way I can center it. But for what we're doing today, we're going to put this at the bottom left. Means our laser head is right here. We'll double check. We got 184 over 230. That's all good. I'm going to do one final check of our speed is 150, power is 100%. We're going to do one pass, and it is at 0.048. Again, these may not be the absolute best, but they are working good for me, and I will actually try to only change one setting at a time, and that way if it improves it, great, and I do a little bit to where if it hurts it, hopefully it doesn't ruin the project and it's still viable, but it is a little bit not as great, and then I know to go back. If you change multiple variables at once, you really don't know which one caused your issue or helped you. So this is what we're going to run it at. So I'm just going to hit the start button, and the machine has started. So we are going to let that run. It says 1 hour and 41 minutes, and we will check back in 1 hour and 41 minutes and see how it turned out. As you can see, we are just about 2 millimeters right there from the bottom, and we are right there about 2 millimeters from the top. Just about perfect on the alignment. So let's go wash this off and see how good of a job we actually did. So I just take a couple of squirts. It's awesome. I get it from the Dollar Tree for $1.25 for the bottle. And all it takes is just a couple little squirts on there. And I don't know if you really need to let it sit or not for a few seconds. It seems like as soon as you spray it, you can see it falling off on the sink there. Just a quick scrub with a magic eraser, and if it was a good burn, it should just wipe off and be really good. Now I don't know the whole process. This right here, I seem to get more fumes, and I need to start maybe wearing a mask when I'm cleaning these cups, because I do have the Wecreat booster fan going out the window, and I have a meter here on my desk, and I get 0 parts per million of crud in the air when I'm running the dust extraction. That's one thing I like about this little machine, is this is safe, but spraying that awesome stuff is really kind of gets you in the throat. What I'm trying to point out here is, you see the top is actually looks pretty good. It's nice and shiny. That bottom has just a little dullness to it. It's not bad, but even here up on the top, it's got just a little bit of dullness. You take some of this Barkeeper's Best Friend, and that's another one of those little tricks there, and you sprinkle some of that on it and then hit it with that magic eraser, and you'll see here, it only takes really like 3 seconds, and it just takes that little film right off and makes it shine up really nice. So love the way this thing turned out. It's just absolutely awesome. As you can see, this thing came out beautiful. That was 150 millimeters a second. Now on the black ones, I've been doing those at 200 millimeters a second, and they came out just as great. I guess the colors do make a little bit of a difference. So if this helped you out, hey, leave a comment down there. I appreciate it. And if you feel like it, go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps the channel out, and I certainly appreciate that. And until next time, I hope everybody has a wonderful afternoon.